Have you ever noticed that when a woman publicly says she wants a certain type of man, many people suddenly become relationship experts? I recently saw a video of a woman who said she wanted to marry a tall man. That was it. She didn't insult anybody. She didn't say shorter men were bad men. She didn't say height was the only thing that mattered. She simply said she wanted a tall man. And almost immediately, people began making response videos. Some mocked her, some criticized her, some went as far as saying, "That's why you're not married at 37. And honestly, I wasn't surprised. Not because of what she said, but because of what the reaction revealed. Because hidden underneath comments like that are two dangerous beliefs that our society has normalized. The first belief is that physical attraction shouldn't matter. The second belief is that being unmarried at a certain age is some kind of personal failure. And both of those ideas is causing more damage than many people realize. So today I want us to have an honest conversation, not just about height, not just about preferences, but about attraction, marriage, standard, pressure, and why we need to rethink the way we talk about single people. Because if we truly want healthier marriages, happier people, and fewer people settling into relationships that they later regret, then some of these conversations need to change. Let's start with the first one. Physical attraction matters, and I think we need to stop pretending that it doesn't. One of the strangest things I see in relationship conversations is how people become suddenly dishonest when attraction comes up. We all know attraction matters. Yet, when someone openly admits that they are attracted to some kinds of physical qualities, people act as though they have committed a crime. Let's be honest. Marriage is not friendship. Marriage is not mentorship. Marriage is not a business partnership. Marriage is one of the most intimate relationships a person will ever have. You wake up next to this person, you build a life with this person, you share your body with this person, you grow old with this person. And to act as though physical attraction isn't important in this equation simply doesn't make sense. Now, before somebody misunderstands me, let me quickly make this clear. I am not saying physical attraction is the most important thing. Character matters, value matters, emotional maturity matters, spiritual alignment matters, conflict resolution matters, shared vision matters. All of those things are incredibly important. But attraction matters too. And to think people get into trouble when they try to erase one truth in order to emphasize another. You can acknowledge that character is important without pretending that attraction is irrelevant. Both can be true. In fact, they should be both true. The reality is that every single person has preferences. Some people like tall partners, some people like shorter partners, some people like a certain personality type, some people are drawn to ambition, some value intelligence, some value humor, some value confidence, some value calmness. Every human being has things that naturally attracts them. This is not a moral issue. This is simply reality. And I find it interesting that many of these same people criticizing someone else's preferences would never marry a person they themselves are not attracted to. So why are we pretending attraction doesn't matter? Why are we shaming people for acknowledging something that almost everyone experiences? The truth is this: physical attraction should not be the entire list, but it is perfectly reasonable for it to be on the list. You are allowed to desire your spouse. You are allowed to feel proud about the person you marry. You are allowed to want both attraction and compatibility. Those things are not enemies. They work together. And honestly, the part that bothered me most wasn't even the conversation about height. It was the comments that kept showing up over and over again. That's why you are still single at 37. And I want us to pause there for a moment. Why do we say things like that? Because why is it that someone being married at 37 treated as something has gone wrong in their lives? Because think about it. A person can be kind, responsible, emotionally healthy, financially stable, making an impact in their community, growing spiritually, contributing to society, and living a reasonable life. Yet, the moment they are unmarried, some people look at all of that and act as if none of that is important, as though one missing title suddenly overshadows everything. And I think that's a very unhealthy way to view human beings. Don't get me wrong, I believe marriage is beautiful. I believe a healthy marriage can be one of the most beautiful blessings in a person's life. I am not anti-marriage. In fact, most of my content is about teaching people how to build beautiful marriages and make wise relationship decisions. So this isn't coming from someone who thinks marriage doesn't matter. I have been married for almost 12 years. Marriage matters, but it is not everything. And somewhere along the line, most of us begin treating marriage as though it is the ultimate achievement of adulthood. As though once you get married, you have arrived. As though people who are married are automatically succeeding and people who are unmarried are automatically behind. But life is far more complex than that, because marriage is a relationship status. It is not a character trait. Marriage tells me that someone got married. It doesn't automatically tell me that they are happy. It doesn't automatically tell me that they are fulfilled. It doesn't automatically tell me that they have made a wise decision. And if we are honest, we all know this. I've seen marriages that look beautiful on the outside, but deep inside the marriage, they were so unhappy. I've seen people who rush into marriage because they were pressured by age, church, family, culture, and society. I've seen people who were so afraid of being single that they accepted relationships that they should have walked away from. And I've seen unmarried people who were thriving, growing, and living a very meaningful life. So why do we continue speaking as though marriage is the ultimate measure of success? Why do we use singleness as an insult? Why do we weaponize someone's marital status anytime they express a preference or an opinion? The truth is, a person's worth does not begin on their wedding day. A woman does not become valuable because a man chose her. A man does not become valuable because a woman married him. Human value is not handed out at the altar. You had value before marriage. You have value within marriage. And if marriage never happens, your value remains intact, because your worth comes from who you are, not your relationship status. And I honestly believe that if we stop treating marriage like the ultimate prize, we would actually see healthier marriages, because fewer people will enter marriage out of fear. Fewer people will settle because they feel behind. Fewer people will choose partners simply because they want to escape the label of being single. And more people will choose from wisdom rather than from panic. Because marriage should be entered from a place of readiness and conviction, not from a place of societal pressure, not from a place of shame, and certainly not from a place of believing that your life cannot begin until someone chooses you. And this brings me to something else I think we need to talk about. Whenever someone remains single longer than society expects, people immediately assume the problem is standards. Your standards are too high, you are too picky, that's why you are still single. But I have a question. How many unhappy marriages were caused by standards? And how many were caused by the absence of them? Because when I look around, I don't see people suffering because they refuse to compromise on everything. I see many people suffering because they compromise on things they should never have compromised on. They ignored red flags. They overlooked character issues. They dismissed warning signs. They silenced their concerns. They talked themselves out of their intuition. They accepted behaviors they knew wasn't healthy. And often, they did it for one reason: fear. Fear of getting older, fear of being left behind, fear of being alone, fear of what people would say, fear of watching people get married while they remain single, fear of being seen as undesirable, so they settled. Not because the person was right for them, but because the pressure became louder than their wisdom. And this is something I wished more people understood. There is a huge difference between being selective and being unrealistic. They are not the same thing. Being selective means you know what matters to you. You understand your values. You understand your non-negotiables. You understand the kind of relationship you want to build. Being unrealistic means expecting perfection, and no human being is perfect. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is alignment. The goal is finding someone whose strengths, value, character, vision, and personality fits the kind of life you are trying to build. And that requires discernment, not desperation. In fact, one of the most dangerous mindsets a person can have is this: anybody will do. Because when anybody will do, it means that anybody can qualify. And that's when people end up in relationships they shouldn't have entered in the first place. Now, again, Let's be balanced. I am not saying every preference should become a non-negotiable. I am not saying people shouldn't be flexible. I am not saying growth and maturity aren't important. What I am saying is that people should stop treating standards as the enemy. Healthy standards are not the enemy. Healthy standards protects you. Healthy standards helps you make wise decisions. Healthy standard helps you to think beyond chemistry and excitement. Healthy standard helps you evaluate whether someone is actually suitable for your life. And honestly, I have seen far more people suffer because they settled, not because they waited. I have seen people rush into marriage and spend years trying to recover from that decision. I have seen people marry simply because they felt time was running out. And unfortunately, some of those people later discovered that getting married and being happily married are not the same thing. Which is why I believe the goal shouldn't be marriage at all costs. The goal should be a healthy marriage. The goal should be a wise marriage. The goal should be the right marriage. Because there is something far worse than waiting longer than you expected. And that is spending years trapped in a relationship that should never have happened in the first place. And finally, I think there is something else we need to understand. A preference is not an attack. Let me say that again. A preference is not an attack. Because one thing I noticed from the reaction to this woman's video is that many people seem personally offended by her preferences. Also, as though her saying, "I prefer a tall man," was an attack on short men. But that's not how preferences work. Every day, people choose partners based on qualities they find attractive. Some people are attracted to extroverts. Some people are attracted to introverts. Some people are drawn to ambition. Others are drawn to gentleness. Some people prefer a certain lifestyle. Some are attracted to particular physical features. And none of that automatically means they are attacking people who don't possess those qualities. It simply means they know what appeals to them. And honestly, if we are mature, we should be able to hear someone else's preferences without feeling personally rejected by it. Because someone choosing what they want is not the same as someone devaluing everyone else. For example, if a man says he wants a woman who loves children, that does not mean women who don't want children are worthless. Of course not. If a woman says she wants a deeply spiritual man, does that mean every other man lacks value? No. If a person says they want a partner who likes adventure, does that mean quiet people are somehow inferior? Again, no. It simply means different people are looking for different things. And that's okay. In fact, that's how relationships work. Not everyone is supposed to be attracted to everyone. Not everyone is supposed to choose everyone. And thank God for that. Imagine how exhausting life would have been if we all wanted the exact same person. The beauty of relationships is that different people value different things. What one person overlooks, another person treasures. What one person doesn't prioritize, another person considers very essential. And that's perfectly normal. The problem begins when we start expecting that everyone should justify their preferences to us. Because underneath that reaction is often insecurity. It's the belief that if someone doesn't choose what I offer, they must be insulting me. But that's not true. Someone else's preferences does not determine your worth. You can be an amazing person and not still be the right fit for someone. And that's okay. The goal is not to be chosen by everyone. The goal is to be chosen by the right person. And when we understand that, we stop getting angry when someone expresses their preferences that doesn't include us. We stop taking everything personally. And we start allowing people to pursue the relationships that genuinely align with who they are. And this is why choosing a spouse requires far more wisdom than most people realize. Because attraction matters, but attraction alone is not enough. Standards matter, but standards alone is not enough. Compatibility matters, character matters, value matters, vision matters, emotional maturity matters. The challenge is learning how to balance all of these things wisely. And honestly, I think this is where many people struggle. And that's one of the reasons I created my course, The Kind of Man You Should Marry Based on Who You Are. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make is looking for a spouse without first understanding themselves. They know what they want, but they don't always know what they need. They know what attracts them, or they don't always know what sustains a healthy marriage. In this course, I walk you through different kinds of men, different kinds of women, different personality dynamics, red flags that matter based on the kind of person that you are, the things women should seriously evaluate before saying yes to any proposal, and how to choose from wisdom and not emotion, because marriage is too important to enter blindly. And if you're interested in the course, I'll leave the details in the description below. Now, let me end with this. The woman who said she wanted a tall man may or may not eventually end up with a tall man. That's not really the point. The point is what our reaction revealed. It revealed how uncomfortable many people are with other people's preferences. It revealed how quickly we use singleness as an insult. It revealed how often we use marriage as the ultimate measure of success. And I think we need to do better, because marriage is beautiful, but marriage is not the meaning of life. Marriage is a blessing, but marriage is not the source of your worth. And being unmarried is not an evidence that the person's life is incomplete. If anything, I would rather see people take their time and choose wisely, rather than rush into marriage because society is counting their birthdays. I would rather see people wait than settle. I would rather see people think carefully than marry desperately. I would rather see someone enter into marriage from conviction rather than fear, because the goal is never to get married as quickly as possible. The goal is to build a marriage that is healthy, peaceful, fulfilling, and lasting. And those are not always the same thing. If you enjoyed this video, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think physical attraction matters in choosing a spouse? Do you think society places too much pressure on people to get married? I would genuinely love to hear your perspective. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next video. Bye.